So, in today's episode is part two from the 3 hour episode. I left off on May of 99. So, it's May of 99. I'm 16, living with my grandma and Belle. I'm getting ready to move with my mom and dad G in Downey. Now, I move with them and everything is good. I am grateful. I'm happy. They, welcome me with open arms. They didn't make me feel uncomfortable, nothing at all. I was grateful to have a roof over my head, clothes on my back, food in my stomach. And I'm grateful for that. Um, Now, I met my husband and got with my husband of October of 99. So, what I'm going to talk about is from May to October. Now, at this time, um, I'm happy and not happy at the same time. Now, I have an issue. I'm going to make another video about depression and all those things, anxiety, all that on another episode and give you my take on it and why I feel some type of way about it. I'm barely learning now what everything means. But back then, we didn't have names for anything. I think the only thing we knew in our family was ADHD, I think, if that's the right word. And I know the medication was just like a depression medicine to keep people or kids low and down, right? But I'll get into that another episode. But what I was feeling in this time in 99, I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know if it was what you call today depression, anxiety. I don't know. But from May to October, I felt something different with me. And I want to say it has to do with my move. Um, and not just because I couldn't get my way anymore. It was just, I don't know what it was. At my grandma's house, I didn't get my way. I still had rules, still had curfew, I still had things. But for me, I had more freedom than I did at my mom's house. My mom still, I had rules, curfew, everything. I was still able to kick it in, go out and stuff. But it wasn't the same anymore. With my where my mom lived in Downey was a dead end. I couldn't have people hide around the block anymore. Um, I couldn't sneak around how I was at my grandma's house. Um, there was always somebody home at my mom's house. My grandma also helped babysit my siblings. So um, I don't know. I just felt I didn't have a phone. That's one of the things. I didn't have a phone anymore. So of course my new spot became the payphone, which is at Jim's Burgers down the street or the Ralph's down the street. And that became my new thing. My new hangout was being at the payphone, paging people or calling people or waiting for them to call you back. Um, my cousins still came around. We still kicked it. We still did stuff. I kicked it around with the neighborhood kids there and the little cholitas that were there. I still did my thing with my homegirls and party. But at the time, the only one that knew what I was going through was one of my homegirls. Now, I know I mentioned in the other video, I started hanging around with East LA, 13. Um, there was a point where by this time, I think I already been kicking it with them for 3 years, I want to say. And I had an older homegirl. Remember I told you there was three? Well, it turns out there was four. There was this older homegirl. She was a veterana. Because I grew up in that kind of lifestyle and in the 80s with my mom and my dad, around that, I love that style. So when I started hanging around with East Los and I came across a very wonderful woman that took us in and protected us, excuse me, and protected us. She was like an older homegirl for us that, watched out for us. And so I started hanging around with older veteranas. I love that. And I was one of the youngest. I want to say me and one of my homegirls were the youngest. And then everybody, 17, 18, 19, etc. And well, I started hanging around with them more. I started doing things more. Like I said, I like that style. We grew up around, like I said, I don't remember if I mentioned in the other video that Southgate was one of the cities, and our house used to get drive by. Um, and so being around that and, participating and being at house parties where there's drive-bys, um, you're immune to it. You're not scared of it because you already live that. I have been at parties that were kickbacks that had raids. It wasn't new for me because I did live a big raid at our house with my dad. We lived with my dad T at one time, um, and so I was used to that. And like I said, I started getting more and more into the East LA thing, and she gave us the okay to hit it up. I also had an older homeboy. At the time, I was 15, 14, 15, and he was around 27. And like I said, I'm the oldest, so I never had older siblings. He took me in like an older sister and protected me. It was nothing else but that, just brother and sister. He makes sure that nothing bad happened to me and my homegirls. He saved me a lot of times. Back in the day, you were able to use fake names, and I used to use fake names. I'm trying not to say a lot of stuff to not incriminate myself, but yeah, we were able to use fake names, and so he actually saved me a lot of times from getting arrested. He would be like, "Oh no, she's my sister," or this and that. There was one big incident that I got arrested for, and just right there, the handcuffs in the cop car, not going to the station, and because of him, I never had to go to the station. And so I was grateful to have those two people that watched over me because, like I said, I had homegirls that things did happen to them. And so I just started going into it more harder, hitting it up. We were starting a girl clique, having kickbacks, having girl meetings. And I will say this, no matter how hard us girls want to be, how chingonas, how gangster, how cholas we want to be, in this gang life, it's a man's world. And I know we shouldn't be saying that in today's world, but I will say the gang life belongs to a guy. It's not for girls. It's not for, some girls can handle it. I met a lot of girls that went to prison, a lot of veteranas that, were in prison, that did time and did work for their neighborhood, and were really down and gangster for their neighborhood. But in reality, if you don't earn that, you're either labeled a hoe, a hood rat, and there's no respect for a girl in the gang life. Unless, like I said, you put in that work and you earned it, and they'll respect you for that, if that. So, like I said, from May to October, I was going in a deep hole. I was hurting. I was happy and sad at the same time. The only one that knew how I felt was one of my homegirls. Even though I was close to my cousin, I didn't tell her none of these things. I hide a lot of this stuff from my family because, of course, they were not going to agree. If I told my cousin these stuff, she would go and probably tell. I don't know. But I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't have done. I was involved in dangerous stuff that I shouldn't be doing. But like I said, I chose to do those things. The things I didn't want to do because I didn't let the peer pressure get me, I didn't do if I didn't want to. Um, but when I met my husband, that day that I met him, I felt like he was an angel sent from God. And I met my husband in September, the beginning of September of 99. We had just got into school, and my cousin needed to do credits for her, for her to graduate. And Bell Gardens has this youth center. And usually the bus would drop us off because we went to a continuation in Montebello. And so the bus would drop us off in Bell Gardens on Garfield in Florence in front of a church. And there's an alley there. And usually I would make a left and get the bus to go home. And then my cousin used to make a right to go to either my grandma's or her boyfriend's house to get picked up from her mom later on. So that day, she said she was going to go to the youth center and, to go make some credits. So I told her I would go with her. She asked me to go with her. I don't remember how it was. And we went down this alley. And there was this lowrider car going through there. And it was not even fixed up yet. It was my compadre, which is my husband's homeboy, and my husband on the passenger side. And at the time they were homeboys, later on became compadres. And in that alley, there's a car shop there. And it was my husband's homeboy's dad's shop there. So they were taking the car there. And my husband was living in Bell Gardens at the time with his brother. And so when they passed through, we just caught eyes and he said, "What's up?" I said, "What's up?" And which is weird for me because my husband is a cholo type, but the type that I was into, I would say my husband wasn't my type. And I'll get into that later on. But he got off the car. We started chit-chatting. His homeboy went into the shop. My cousin walked forward away from me over there. And he gave me his beeper number, his pager number. And he told me his name. Now, his nickname in his neighborhood is Pooh Bear. He thought when he said that I was going to be like, "Oh, how cute." And he said I was the first girl that didn't do that. Because when he told me his name, I really don't care. And trip this out. I was a Winnie the Pooh fan. And I love Tigger. My birthday my birthday that year, my cousin and my mom, they gave me and my dad G a little thing of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. I love Winnie the Pooh and I love Tigger. To this day, I'm the only Tigger. But he didn't know that at the time either. But when he told me his nickname, when he wrote it down on the paper to give me his number, I didn't make a scene out of it because to me, that was not a gangster name. That was okay, whatever. Like, it didn't. And he said later on that I was the first girl that didn't be like, "Oh," And so I got his number. And every time I got a guy's number, I always called. You would call it thirsty today. It wasn't like that back in the day. Back now, I guess you guys wait or whatever, but I would always call right away. No, I didn't call my husband to October, which was the next month, but I'm going to share this on another story because I want to get into me and my husband's story on another one. But I'm just trying to put content here. Is my cousin actually paged them and she answered the phone, right? Because we used to talk we sounded the same on the phone. Now, the reason why I didn't call my husband right away, because like I told you, I was in this dark place. No one knew it. If you ask my mom and everybody today, they'll, even hearing this right now, they're going to say, what is she talking about? No, she wasn't. We didn't see that. How was she feeling like that? She was, yeah, I was probably laughing, everything, but I was in a dark place. And a couple months prior, I was with a couple of guys and that I was on with off and on, but they weren't doing anything. They weren't, I felt like it wasn't going anywhere. And I felt I needed to clean house. I needed to get rid of everybody. I needed everybody out of my circle gone. I needed to set myself free. And, with the pressure of the school, what do you want to be when you grow up or whatever, or what career you're going to choose and not. And on the other hand, this gang life, one of the older heads, I don't know what happened, but somebody became the shot caller and he started giving, orders of what people were going to do. At the time, learning the street life, learning the gang life, there's politics that are in there. There's prison order, people that give orders from prison. The mafia's involved and, everything like that. And I used to hide from taking pictures. And that's something I do regret, that I'm not in none of the pictures from my homegirls, because I thought if I was in the picture, I would get caught. My mom and my grandma would kick my ass. I always thought my dad T would get upset that I wasn't from his neighborhood. So I stood away from I was in some videos, but not in a lot of pictures. I would always stay in the background or go behind somebody or try not to get in the picture. So with the gang life, this guy giving orders and whoever's giving orders from prison, well, they tell us that on New Year's, we're going to have to get jumped in. Either we walk away from this or we're getting jumped in, because this guy comes and he's like, okay, you guys want to act like you're gangsters, you're cholas. You want to do your own girl clique? Okay, we'll do that. But now you guys are going to get jumped in and you guys are going to put in real work. Not this little shit you guys are doing. You're going to put in real work. You want to hit up this neighborhood? You're going to put in real work. So, mind you, when I moved with my mom in the end of May of 99, by this time, a lot of my homegirls too. When I moved, not only my life was changing, but my group was changing, my circle. I had some homegirls that were going into jail. I had one homegirl that went to prison for a murder case. I had another homegirl that had to move to San Diego because she got into shit and she got probation and she needed to go live with her grandma. I had homegirls that were having babies. I had homegirls that lost their kids and were trying to get back their shit together. I had homegirls that got caught up in the drug life and were addicts. And I did have homegirls that started jumping into the neighborhood or jumping into neighborhoods. And mind you, by this time, even though I'm kicking it with East LA, I do have homegirls from other neighborhoods too that I kicked it with and party with. We also partied with other guys from other neighborhoods, even though we weren't supposed to do that. But now I have this. Do I want this? What is it that I'm going to choose? Do I want to get into this neighborhood? To me, it was like an experience. I lived around this my whole life. But do I want this for my future? Something that my family doesn't know. And I know they don't know because I never told them. But when I met my husband, and got with my husband, he actually saved me. They talk shit that he was a cholo, he was a gangster. They even went so far to say he was a drug dealer. But if I would have never got with my husband, I think I would have got from that neighborhood, like really got into it. And I would have been either in jail, dead, or hooked on the streets. Who knows? Maybe I would have became a nurse. I don't know. But for me, what I was feeling inside from May to October, only I know how I felt. I shared it with one homegirl. And when I got with my husband, he knew what I was going through. Because the same way I was hiding stuff from my family, my husband was hiding stuff from his family as well. My husband started later in life. I started at 12 years old. So when I met my husband, it was like I found my purpose. I found my life. My husband was just starting off. I'm going to get into that later on. But when I met my husband and we got together in October. I think I moved in with him in January. Well, I was already like sleeping over more like December, January, before I literally took all my stuff, probably like in February, but basically from October. He was the first guy that treated me with respect, the first guy that treated me with love, that knew how to treat a woman, a girl, that was so polite, so respectful, so generous, and didn't ask for nothing in return. I didn't know what it was to have flowers. I didn't know what it was to have conversations, to not be with somebody for just a night. He was actually like, I don't know how to explain it, but what I was feeling for those months, it like, with him, I felt like I was safe. I felt like everything that the way I was feeling just went away. I did have my family, and I'm grateful for that. I did have the love. I had everything, but I don't know how to explain it. But the life that I was living, the way I was going, I don't know what I would have chose. What I would have chose to stay in school and become a nurse. What if I would have, the way we were living, I was not going to meet a doctor. You know what I mean? I was not going to go to Harvard. But the things I was doing, the dangerous stuff I was going to have to do, more dangerous stuff I was going to have to do, was I going to choose to be in that life? Did I want to leave my homegirls? So I was going to choose that for I won't lose my friends, my peoples that I was used to. Even though I had older people that are around me and they were making sure that we don't get into that. At this time, they had no choice anymore. Like they said, we can't do anything about that. Now, I thank God that even though, how do I want to say this? Yes, I didn't become a nurse. Yes, I didn't go to Harvard. Yes, I didn't meet a doctor. But even if I didn't meet my husband, I still wouldn't have become those things. You know what I mean? My family members didn't do that either. And so they don't know this, but my husband was an angel sent from God to save me. Getting pregnant with my daughter saved my fucking life. And I'm so grateful. And if this was my purpose, God put it there for me. My mom's second child became from a neighborhood. Went to jail at 18 for attempted murder. That fool is almost 40, or he's 40, and he's still in prison. My mom's third child, my brother F, became from that same neighborhood, and they became from neighborhoods that we didn't even grow up in a city we never even were in. And my brother F got into that neighborhood too. And he was in and out of prison his life too. And he did all the shit street life. Getting stabbed, getting shot. My brother F got shot at one point 37 times. And thank God he's still here. And for the first time in his life, he's actually enjoying life right now in his late 30s. He's been out of jail out of prison, I think, for the first time, 6 years maybe. 5, 6 years. No, like 6, 7 years he's going. This year will make probably 7 years, I think. And for the first time in his life, he's enjoying what life is about. Enjoying vacations, and enjoying a woman, enjoying kids, enjoying his family, barbecues, the beach, whatnot. Their dad, my dad T, was from a neighborhood since he was, if I'm not mistaken, 13 years old maybe. And his whole life, he was in and out of prison. And then got into drugs and passed away in that life, in the streets, in that life. And his dad, my grandpa F, was in a neighborhood since he was a young kid. And went even into the Mexican mafia, the M. And he died an old man in prison. Because his whole life was the street life, the gang life, in and out of prison. So that comes from our background. Imagine I would have got into East LA. What my life would have become if it wasn't for my husband. Y'all may not see it like that, but I do. I see it as an angel sent from God, like I said. I want to thank God that none of my other siblings became that life. I want to thank God until today. My husband changed his life as well, because he also was in that gang life. I want to thank God, and I can only talk about right now, and today, right now, today, Friday. My kids are in the early 20s. And right now, they don't have that life. I can't talk about tomorrow, but I could say today, thank God, my kids didn't have to grow up like that. And my kids are not in that lifestyle right now. But yeah, this was part 2 of where I left off. Um, I don't know if it makes sense, but I just wanted to make this part to close that chapter. There's a lot of stuff I left out, a lot of details that I didn't get, and a lot of stuff I don't want to say because I don't want to incriminate myself on here. And to this day, everything that I shared right now, the only one that ever knew about all this at that time, before I met my husband, was one of my homegirls. And then my husband. My husband actually seen some stuff that I was already doing, things that I was already going the way I was already going. And if I graduated from school, it's because my husband pushed me. I thought by living with him, I was not going to have to go to school every day. And he pushed me every day to go to school. And, I am grateful for my parents. And it's not their fault. I chose to do what I wanted to do. I chose the decisions I wanted to make. I chose. And best believe, I didn't even do a lot of bad stuff, I want to say. I did stuff, but not as bad because I chose not to. But when it came down to this decision to get jumped in, I think I was ready to do it. Because, like I told you, I went into a black hole when my routine and my regular life had to be moved. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't have felt like that. No one made me feel like that, but I was just going through that at that time. I don't have answers for it. I don't know why. If I had everything I want and I was fucking happy, if you ask anybody, I was fucking goofy, fucking the happiest person. But I was fucking dying. Crying in the fucking showers. On my way home, walking to school. I would have used that time to let my shit out. I did notice that when I would fight somebody, I felt like I was fighting more and more aggressive because I was letting that shit out. I remember they had me in she wasn't a homegirl, but she was just somebody that kicked it there. And, she was talking shit and they said, okay, fight. And it wasn't even so much what she said. It was that I used the opportunity to just take out everything that I was fucking feeling. And when I fucking seen the fucking blood on my hands and her face, that shit scared the shit out of me. Because I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? This ain't fucking me. What am I doing? But, like I said, I was just in a bad place. My kids and my husband know a lot of stuff that I did. There was a situation too that it wasn't even that bad, and I used scissors and I was doing stupid shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like maybe somebody else felt the same way and they don't understand what I'm saying. But the point that I'm trying to make here and trying to end this is that what I shared on the 30-hour video, this is up to the point already where I meet my husband and I start my marriage life and being a mom and being a wife. And so I'll share that on the next video of me and my husband's story. And but yeah, even though to some of my family members may think that getting pregnant at 17 and getting married at 17 was a mistake, it wasn't a mistake for me. It was a savior point in my life. Meeting my husband and having my daughter getting pregnant saved me, because I would have continued using drugs and maybe even heavier if I didn't get pregnant. I would have continued drinking more heavily than I had started. Who knows what it would have been. I was still kicking it with my homegirls when I met my husband. I was still, going to kickbacks with my homegirls, still doing dangerous stuff. Even when I was still doing that until I moved with my husband. But, so who knows if I didn't move with my husband or I didn't get pregnant, if we didn't even stay together and something else worse would have happened, That New Year's, I did not get jumped in because I was with my husband. I was not pregnant yet, but I was already slowing down. Like I said, my older homegirl and the older homeboy was still protecting us to move it, give it another month. But I thank God that God put my husband in my path that day. Thank God that my cousin asked me to go to the youth center, or I invited myself. I don't remember how that was. Thank God, because it saved my life. It really did. It really, really did. Thank God that my husband was with his homeboy at that day, my compadre, and that they happened to drive on that alley and take the car that day. I don't know. Everything is meant to be where God wants it to be, right? Or the universe. And so yeah, guys, this was part 2. This is the end of the chapter from all my whole story. I'll still give you guys pieces here and there between stories about, my youth and even about Islos. But I don't think I'll go into depth the way I shared right now. What I shared in the 3-hour video and this video, I think I gave enough information, maybe too much. And that's not even half of it. But I want to start sharing the happy moments with my family, my cousins, my grandma, my mom, my siblings, my dad, everybody. But yeah, the next video that's going to come up, I will share me and my husband's story until I get pregnant and so on, right? And my husband's family and everything. So I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you press that like. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure to share. And I appreciate the love and support you guys are giving. I know some of you are watching this listening to it on Spotify, and some are listening on YouTube. And I appreciate it. Thank you. The more people that watch, the more different accounts that I listen to on YouTube, the more the views go up. You could also press the little bell to know when I upload. But I just appreciate the love and support, and that you guys are liking my story. Thank you. I do also want to leave you guys with some affirmations, but mine won't be like everybody uses. Mine will be something like, okay, have a good weekend. Make sure to wash that ass. See y'all.